London, the capital of England and the United Kingdom, the home of Big Ben, Abbey Road, and the Royal Albert Hall. I'm Alex with Occupy Pro Wrestling, and thanks to a special request from Nick, we're firing up the OPW tape study for a look at WWE's Battle Royal at the Albert Hall. The Royal Albert Hall is a fascinating building that opened back in 1871 and has seen countless events of all sorts emanate from within its walls, from concerts to speeches to sporting events. In the world of wrestling, the hall is most notable for the event we're here to talk about, before going on to host the WWE United Kingdom Championship Tournament in 2017 that crowned Tyler Bate as its first title holder. Enough of that, however, it's time to turn the clock back a good couple decades. We take you to October 3rd, 1991, where the World Wrestling Federation is on tour across the UK and Europe. It's been just over a month since SummerSlam, which saw Hulk Hogan and the Ultimate Warrior team up, and Warrior reportedly fired immediately after. And we're a little over a month away from Survivor Series, where Hogan answered the gravest challenge to defend the WWF Championship. Here, smack dab in the middle of two big moments for the Federation, is a special event with an interesting focus on its Battle Royal main event. This is no Royal Rumble, instead a simple enough 20-man bout with a prize of a trophy. At least that's what they call this thing. We'll get to that soon enough, we have a long night ahead of us first. Battle Royal at the Albert Hall took place in front of 5,000 fans at the namesake venue, televised on Sky Movies Plus, and later released on VHS and eventually DVD. The show was added to the WWE Network in November 2018 and is currently available to stream on Peacock in the United States. For now. As of this video, the show is not a part of the WWE content available on Netflix internationally. And until they put that there or, throw it up on YouTube in a fancy vault of WWE footage, watching the show will involve a great deal of looking around. You can do it. I believe near you. Your tag team champions are the Legion of Doom, who are on this show and defending. Bret Hart holds the Intercontinental Championship, and he will not be on this show. As for the World Champion, that's Hulk Hogan, and as we learn later on, he is definitely not on this show. Before the show kicked off, the fans in attendance were treated to a dark match that saw Steve Regal in his pre-WCW days face Brian Maxine. Sadly, the only info on this match is that it exists, with no match runtime on Cage Match. Gee, if only there was a vault that could unveil such a hidden WWE gem somewhere around here. Hey, wait. We start the show with a title card and a quick montage of WWF action to some snazzy music, and then we go to the packed house at the hall as Gorilla Monsoon hypes the coveted prize for the Battle Royal, the Royal Samovar Trophy. We'll talk about that soon enough, but Monsoon and Sir Robert of Heenan are ready to go as we head to ringside for our opening contest. First out are the Nasty Boys alongside their manager, Jimmy Hart. Out next are the Rockers as Shawn Michaels and Marty Jannetty run down the ramp. We're just a couple months away from the big breakup of Michaels and Jannetty, and it's kinda weird seeing these two together as both teams showboat for a bit, and I do mean a bit, before starting the match with Michaels and Jerry Sags. Shawn takes Sags to the corner but is quickly worked over before coming back with a crescent kick and a big crossbody by the Marty Jannetty of the Rockers. Marty Jannetty. Anyway, the Nasties leave the ring as Jimmy yells through the megaphone at the ref. Tag is made to Brian Knobbs, who talks some smack to get Marty into the match. Marty is sent to the corner before catching Brian with a boot to the face, eventually forcing him out of the ring. And that's enough for the Nasty Boys to make a retreat toward the entrance. Jimmy manages to get them back to ringside, and Gorilla confirms my suspicions by saying that he too can tell it's going to be a long night. This is definitely a house show, even if it's in front of a pretty big crowd. Heenan and Monsoon talk about Flair's participation in the main event as Knobbs is taken to his limit by Jannetty before tagging in Sags, who is also taken to his limit by Marty. Conversation on commentary turns to the Nasty Boys looking to regain the tag titles as Sags is sent to the ropes for an arm drag by Jannetty, followed by an arm stretcher as Gorilla calls it. Jerry struggles to his feet, getting Marty on his shoulders for a 2 count before Jannetty takes him back down to the mat. The ref gets distracted by Knobbs, and this allows the babyface Rockers to swap places without a tag. with Shawn putting on the hold of Marty's place. The ref is surveying the fans on whether a tag was made as the commentary debates the legality of it. Jimmy yells about the ref as Jerry finally breaks the hold, going after Shawn with some stomps before Michaels fights back to pull him into the ring post, with Gorilla declaring we have another Soprano in the Royal Albert Hall. There's an argument at ringside involving Marty and Jimmy, and this allows Knobbs to pull the top rope down and force Shawn out onto the floor. This turns the tide for a moment as Shawn struggles back to his feet on the outside, only for Knobbs to sneak some shots in before bringing him toward the nasty corner. Marty rushes over toward Shawn from inside the ring, but he's forced back to his corner as the Nasties continue to beat down Michaels. And I start to realize why Shawn finally had enough of Marty. Heenan shows some confusion about the main event's prize trophy, which feels par for the course as Sags brings Shawn back into the ring for a tag to Knobbs, who takes the future Heartbreak Kid down for a near fall. He then sends him into the corner where Shawn starts to fight back, only for Jerry to tag back in as Jimmy continues to voice his support. Bear hug by Sags and Michaels is fading as the ref raises the arm once, twice, and Shawn is barely hanging in there as he fights back. That doesn't last long as Bryan tags in to continue the damage. Chinlock by Knobbs as the crowd wills Shawn back into the match, and it works as he hoists Bryan up to send him crashing into the canvas. Hot tag to Marty Jannetty, or maybe not, brother, as Gorilla points out that his feet were not on the mat. He argues with the ref about this as the Nasties are taken out by Michaels, who finally gets the actual hot tag to Marty. He goes off on both Nasty Boys with strikes and a couple drop kicks for good measure, sending Knobbs to the corner for some punches before Sags tries to intervene, but to no avail, as Marty lures Bryan in before picking up a near fall. All four men are still in the ring as the Rockers start to fight back, sending the Nasty Boys into each other before Marty gets the cover on Sags for the 2 count, as Jerry narrowly manages to get the shoulder up. Double teamed by the Rockers, but Jimmy hops onto the apron to get into it with Shawn, sneakily tossing in the megaphone to Knobbs, who hits Marty with it and escapes the ring, while Jerry gets the 3 count for the win. Cage Match tells me this match went 17-21. It could have gone 10-12. Unlike my buddy and co-host Chris, I will not be giving matches on this show a typical letter grade. I'm also not a star man waiting in the sky to cast my judgment up to 5. No, I'm borrowing from one of my favorite YouTubers, Dr. Wolfila, and I'm giving this match a barbershop window out of Pity City. Above all else, this match was a stern reminder that I am watching a glorified house show. There's nothing inherently wrong with that, and the match at least had some good action here and there. Backstage, Mean Gene Okerlund talks to Ric Flair, who quickly shows off his world championship. That whole angle with Ric calling himself the real world's champion is honestly fascinating to me, down to the variations made to dance around the legal issues with WCW at the time. But here, this is the actual NWA World Heavyweight title being shown off. One of the few times it was before they made not 1 but 2 different belts deal with all that mess. Anyway, Okerlund talks to Flair about his match against Tito Santana in the main event Battle Royal. Flair says he'll show Tito why he's the greatest wrestler alive today, before turning his attention to Roddy Piper being in the Battle Royal and promising to show him the same thing. He lets out a couple woos as Mean Gene takes it back to ringside. There's a nice ovation for Tito Santana as the former IC champion heads to the ring for our next match. Gorilla and Bobby talk about Tito, and Heenan semi-sarcastically gives Santana some praise, leading to one of the strangest commentary moments I've heard from this era when Gorilla remarks that he knows Bobby's gonna bury Tito. It's not often you hear chatter in the early 90s that nearly breaks kayfabe. Anyway, out next is Ric Flair to that odd knockoff of the theme from 2001: A Space Odyssey. I can only assume that the song was either not public domain, or, much like their efforts to recreate the world title in the coming weeks, the Federation was trying to make it clear that Flair was not, relying too much on his WCW career? I don't know. We get a view of Bobby standing up for his man Flair from the commentation station. I'll admit, I was wondering where the pair were calling the action from, as it was pretty clear this was not an announce table at the ringside type show. As we start this match, I suddenly have a memory flash in my brain. Haven't I seen this match before? Oh, that's right, this was the main event of the second ever Monday Night Raw in 1993. I'm suddenly curious to see how they did nearly 2 years prior, and also remembering to get back on doing reviews for The Calm Before the War as the pair lock up in the ring. Flair takes Tito to the corner for a woo, and Santana responds in kind, sending the Real World's champion to the opposite side. There's a slight standoff before the lockup, and Tito takes Flair to the mat with a shoulder tackle before Rick rolls out for the breather. Bobby talks down on Hogan, remarking on the WWF champion going out to make movies, and somewhere in the back, Vince is probably chuckling and muttering, "We make movies here in the WWF, pal." Test of strength ends with Flair taking control, wrenching the arm of Santana while telling the crowd to keep their mouths shut. That's heat, brother. Flair takes Tito down to the mat, but Santana fights back for a little bit before Flair grounds him again. Tito finally manages to break free, forcing Rick to the corner. Bobby's remarks about Piper in his little skirt are just a little grating, a sign of the times as Tito and Flair go at it once more. Santana with a jab and an Irish whip to the corner, followed by a back body drop and a couple drop kicks for good measure. Flair takes the powder once again, but Santana chases after him before slamming Flair face first into the guardrail. Flair responds with an attack of his own, but is caught with a drop toe hold, or single leg takedown according to Monsoon, before Santana targets the leg. Rick grabs the rope to force a break, backing away from Tito before getting caught in the corner. Santana with some strikes before Flair drops him down for a near fall, using the ropes for leverage. Heenan talks about going down to the ring to referee as Tito fights back for some mounted punches in the corner before Flair hits an inverted atomic drop on Santana. Rick is firmly in control as Bobby and Monsoon talk about the difference between Flair and Hogan, and the Real World's champion gets caught once again using the ropes for leverage on a near fall. He gets into it with the official, something Heenan advises against, as the last thing Rick should want is to be disqualified, even if this match has little to no stake. Flair gets back into it, sending Tito to the corner and walloping him until the ref has it out with him over the excessive force. Big snapmare by Flair for a near fall, using the ropes yet again, and this time, Flair leaves the ring to give out with some fans calling him out for the blatant cheating. He only gets as far as the apron before turning his attention back to Santana, who starts trading strikes with Flair before sending him to the corner for some body shots. Tito ends it with a big hammer throw that leads to a Flair flop off the turnbuckle. Bobby makes a few more choice remarks about Santana that, yes, I've been trying to ignore up to this point, as Flair starts to beg off Tito in the middle of the ring. Tito responds with a kick to the sternum, getting into a curious test of strength that ends with a backslide that gets Santana a 2 count. Flair gets back into it with a poke to the eyes of Santana before going to work on him with some strikes for a near fall of his own. Back suplex by Flair followed by the figure 4 leg lock, and Tito is struggling to keep his shoulders off the mat as Flair occasionally grabs the ropes for leverage, and the ref nearly catches Rick on this, but not before Tito manages to reverse the pressure onto the Real World's champion. This forces Flair to break the hold as both men struggle to their feet, with Flair targeting Tito's leg. Santana catches Rick with a forearm before sending him to the outside with an uppercut, following Flair to the floor for more damage. Tito enters the ring to break the ref's count, but he's pulled back out of the ring by Rick, who gets a few shots in before sending Santana back in. Flair goes up top, and it costs him as Tito drops him with a press slam for a close 2 count. Elbow drop from Santana misses his mark, and Flair is back in control, just long enough for Tito to respond with a clothesline for another near fall. Heenan is beside himself at commentary as Tito hits a flying forearm for the cover, and Rick gets his foot on the bottom rope to stop the pin. Gorilla offers to buy Heenan lunch for a year to calm him down as Rick counters a roll-up and grabs Tito's tights to steal a victory at 16-14. A much better match than the opener. I really enjoyed the back and forth here with Tito really giving it his best shot against Flair. I give this match a drop toe hold out of a single leg takedown. Don't let that rating fool you, this was a good match for sure. Backstage we hear from Mean Gene, who talks about getting Suburban Commando tickets for his birthday before talking to the Big Boss Man about the main event and his match against Earthquake. Boss Man talks about his jurisdiction being the entire world before promising to take out the trash that is Earthquake. He then brings up the trophy that's up for grabs in the main event, and I changed my mind. Let's talk about that trophy now. In doing my research for this event, I found out that the Royal Samovar trophy is, in fact, a large urn used for heating and boiling water for tea, which, for those unaware, is precisely what the word Samovar means. So the main event for this show sees 20 men go at it in a battle royal over the top rope for what is essentially a big tea kettle. It's no worse than some of the other one-off and even recurring accolades within pro wrestling. The magic of editing takes us to another title card and then back to Mean Gene, who is among the fans at the hall as he welcomes Earthquake. Jimmy hypes up his man before Earthquake talks about Big Boss Man getting beat up by the Earthquake, and then promises he and his buddy Typhoon will win the Battle Royal. Earthquake then enters the ring to what is either apathetic silence or the fans rumbling their feet against the ground. It's actually kinda hard to tell, but what's easy to notice is the big pop for the Big Boss Man as Cobb County's finest makes a beeline for the ring. As the match gets underway, Earthquake leaves the ring saying he refuses to get back in unless Boss Man drops his nightstick. The Boss Man obliges, looking to make Earthquake serve hard times as the latter gets back in. They circle the mat before Earthquake sends Boss Man to the ropes to show off his power. Earthquake sends him to the corner this time, Jimmy cheering him on from ringside before Boss Man catches him with some punches to force one half of the Natural Disasters to the corner. They reset for a test of strength, or maybe not, as Earthquake sends Boss Man to the corner before hitting a scoop slam. Boss Man manages to evade a big stomp and an elbow drop as he leaves the ring, circling around before getting back in for some shots. He dodges Earthquake in the corner, rolling him up for a near fall. Headlocked by Boss Man as he keeps Earthquake down to one knee. Jimmy insists to the ref that Boss Man has his man by the beard, but after a moment we see that he was right this whole time, but the ref doesn't catch it before Boss Man goes right back to the headlock until Earthquake sends him to the ropes to force the break. He drops Boss Man with a shoulder block, but the purveyor of hard times evades another elbow drop attempt. He goes to the bottom turnbuckle for an elevated clothesline on Earthquake, following up with a double axe handle from the most dangerous rope, the middle, to force him down to the mat. The crowd cheers as the Boss Man goes up top, but he gets caught by Earthquake for a big power slam. Earthquake steps on Boss Man for further damage, bringing him up to his feet only to club him back down and prop him against the rope. Ref forces a break as the Boss Man gets to his feet, only to be sent by the corner by Earthquake for a shoulder strike. Irish Whip sends Boss Man to the opposite side, dropping him down to the canvas. He grinds Boss Man's face against the ropes as Jimmy continues to cheer him on, and Earthquake sends Boss Man to the corner once more for some strong hip attacks to force him back down. The crowd tries to will Boss Man on, and it works as he fights back with some strikes until Earthquake slams him against the turnbuckle. Earthquake then locks in the bear hug on Boss Man, who fights out by going after the face. He boxes the ears to force a break, but Earthquake takes him back down with a clubbing forearm to the back for good measure. Continuing the attack, Earthquake cinches in a chin lock as Boss Man struggles to break free. Gorilla and Heenan discuss which natural disaster is bigger, with Bobby saying Quake is about 6 pounds heavier. The Boss Man fights to his feet to hit the ropes for a shoulder tackle, but he can't take Quake down and he's sent to the canvas instead, courtesy of a big right hand. Earthquake flexes before hitting a jumping stomp on Boss Man, forcing him to the ropes as he drives his boot into the former corrections officer from Cobb County. Boss Man leaves the ring for a breather as the ref begins a count, but Earthquake intercepts him on the apron to force the officer to the floor. He then gives chase, sending Boss Man into the guardrail and then stepping back into the ring as the ref begins a new count. The Boss Man manages to get back in the ring, but he's intercepted for a near fall by Earthquake before getting his leg on the bottom rope to save the match. Earthquake brings him back to his feet for a couple elbow shots to the head, but he manages to fight back by sending Quake to the corner for a series of headbutts to the midsection. Hammer throw is reversed, allowing Earthquake to hit the officer with an avalanche in the corner before his driving his boot into the face of the fan favorite. The ref intervenes to force a break as Boss Man slowly recovers, countering an Irish Whip from Quake for an enziguri that takes the man from Cobb County to the mat with a thud. Both men are down as the ref begins a standing 10 count, but Boss Man sits up as Jimmy hops on the apron to get his man back into it. Boss Man covers for a 2 count before going after Hart on the apron. This allows Quake to rush at him, only to drop Jimmy off the apron with the shoulder instead. Boss Man then rolls up Earthquake for a near fall as the Mountie makes his way to the ring to help Jimmy to his feet. Quake gets trapped in the ropes as Boss Man lands some shots before hitting the ropes for a crossbody. Boss Man goes for it again but gets tripped up by Mountie, allowing Quake to finally get free of the ropes and hit a running elbow drop for the pin and the win at 15:47. A good match between two big guys with Jimmy Hart and the Mountie getting involved near the finish. I'm gonna give this a Bossman Enziguri out of an avalanche. Earthquake celebrates on the outside with the Mountie before Bossman chases him to the back. We head backstage once again to Mean Gene hyping up the big Royal Samovar trophy on the line in our main event. Okerlund talks about what a Battle Royal entails before welcoming his guest, Kerry Von Erich. He says the Texas Tornado is one of the favorites to win the Battle Royal, with Kerry saying this is the toughest match the World Wrestling Federation could offer, which makes Kerry a really good liar. Kerry says it's for all the bragging rights and to be the king of the mountain. My world. He's then asked about his opponent coming up, which Von Erich says that the Mountie is real tough when he's got that stick in his hand. And I ask myself if I make the joke I want to make right now, as he says it's just the two of them in that ring. We then head to ringside as Gorilla and Bobby seem a little confused on whether Mean Gene is ready, which, considering we technically go from Okerlund backstage to Okerlund at ringside, yeah, I'd be confused too. Anyway, Gene welcomes Jimmy Hart and the Mountie for an interview. Jimmy says the Hart organization always sticks together in reference to the assist during the previous match, and that the Mountie always gets his man. When asked about the Texas Tornado, Mountie says that we can forget about Kerry Von whatever his name is, and the only thing royal about this building is the Mountie, and when he's finished, he's gonna win the trophy because he's the only law and order in the World Wrestling Federation. I do love when folks crowbar their catchphrases into a promo. We head down to the ring as the Mountie enters, upset that they're not playing his music. I was tempted to blame it on his music playing when he entered the interview area, but Earthquake got music on his way to the ring. Maybe the Queen has it out for old Mountie. Anyway, next out is Kerry Von Erich to a nice pop from the crowd as Gorilla asks Bobby if he's leaving, but Heenan says a little bird was winking at him, before realizing it was just a pigeon. Oh Bobby, you're so cheeky. Anyway, Kerry enters the ring and this match is underway. We get a slow start as Kerry looks around at the crowd and Mountie taunts both his opponent and the fans. The two lock up and wrestle around by the ropes until Mountie gets the Texas Tornado to the corner, where the ref calls for a break. Mountie keeps playing to the crowd as Jimmy mocks the fans through his megaphone, while Gorilla keeps going on about Mountie's time in jail. Dominic Mysterio says hello. Anyway, Kerry fights out of the corner by shoving the Mountie away, and the Mountie takes a breather on the outside. He and Hart give out to the ref about Kerry's methods before Mountie tries to sneak attack the Tornado, but to no avail as Von Erich wrenches his arm instead. A stray jailbird shout as Mountie leapfrogs Kerry, only for Von Erich to hit a right hand, sending him to the outside, where the Mountie faces a jailbird chant from the crowd. This riles him up enough to start making his exit, only to return to the ring after some words from Jimmy Hart. The Mountie yells at the crowd some more as I realize that this is yet another house show match for a big ol' house show. The Mountie leaves the ring again before getting back in, where he catches Von Erich with a chinlock. Kerry drops to the mat as the ref checks on the Texas Tornado. Kerry slowly rises back to a knee as he works to break free of the hold before hitting the ropes, and runs right back into a chinlock by the Mountie. Someone get wrestling bios on the phone, this could get ugly quick. The ref checks on him again, raising the arm once and twice, and Kerry starts fighting back to his feet once more. He breaks free of the hold again and sends Mountie to the ropes for a sleeper hold. Mountie is fading and... Oh, thanks Gorilla, that's what I said. Anyway, Mountie gets to the ropes to force a break. Kerry looks like he's still facing the effects of Mountie's offense as he heads to the corner, only to be taken down by a Mountie snapmare and a stomp. Kerry gets back up onto the ropes, only to be sent over into the floor outside. Mountie leaves the ring as Bobby says the Mountie is ahead in points. Mountie sends the Tornado into the ring steps before getting back in the ring. Kerry tries to get back in but is sent right back out by the Mountie. The Mountie goes back after him and this proves costly as Kerry starts fighting back with some right hands, propping the Mountie against the ring post for a discus lariat, but the Mountie dodges, forcing the arm of Von Erich to collide with the post instead. This gives Mountie an opening as he takes Kerry to the ropes, but Von Erich dodges a clothesline to lay out the Mountie with one of his own instead. Mountie in the corner as Kerry goes after him, only to be pushed away as Mountie goes for the cover, getting his legs up on the top rope for leverage and the win. Mountie's music hits as he's announced as the winner, and Gorilla and Bobby get into it about the use of the ropes by the Mountie, before the ref finds out what he did, calling for the match to continue instead. The crowd cheers as Kerry goes after him, with Heenan losing his cool about the whole situation. but the Mountie decides to leave the ring before he and Jimmy retreat to the back. Kerry's music plays as I pull up the old cage match to find out what this match result actually is. Oh. All official records show the Mountie beating Kerry Von Erich at 13-16. I'm giving this match a Mountie shock stick out of Kerry Von Erich's pure charisma, and I'm moving on. From there we go to a funeral parlor segment hosted by Paul Bearer. Man, remember when seemingly everyone in the Federation had a talk show segment? Paul talks about the royalty that has been in the Albert Hall, reminding us that a lot of them are now in the cemetery. He and Taker then talk about Jim Duggan and the Battle Royal main event, with Taker calling the latter a WWF mass burial. With that, we cut back to ringside. An organist in a Phantom of the Opera style getup plays the funeral dirge we know as Undertaker's theme, bringing out the OG Deadman and Paul Bearer as the pair head toward the ring for our next match. Heenan and Monsoon have a bit of banter about who the organ player is. Let's pretend it's Jim Johnston, you never know. Out next is Jim Duggan to a nice pop from the London crowd. Now I swear, if this crowd chants USA during this match, I might lose my cool. Duggan waves the US flag around before entering the ring, and we get this match underway. Taker and Duggan go at it, with Hacksaw being sent to the corner early on. Duggan manages to fight back, sending Taker to the ropes before clotheslining him over the top and to the outside as if this is the Battle Royal. Taker lands on his feet as Paul gives him advice, and Duggan gets the crowd going in a... well, you gotta be kidding me. The crowd in London is chanting USA. Both men are from the United States. Alright, let's pack it up. This whole thing is done. Taker comes back in the ring and goes back on the attack, choking Duggan out until the ref intervenes. He breaks the hold, staring the ref down before catching Hacksaw against the ropes. Another USA chant breaks out as Duggan tries to fight back, landing some solid right hands before Taker knocks him down to the mat for another blatant choke. Duggan is under the bottom rope as the ref begins to count to force a break. Duggan, holds up? Only for Taker to wring his arm and go old, well, current school to bring the Hacksaw back down. The crowd is still very much rooting for Duggan here as he gets back to his feet in the corner, but Taker immediately goes back to choking him out until the ref intervenes. Taker goes right back to this before Jim hoists him up for an inverted atomic drop. Taker seems barely phased, but Duggan blocks a chokeslam attempt before forcing him to the corner for some mounted punches. He sees Paul Bearer messing with his 2x4 and leaves the ring to have some words for him. And when he comes back in the ring, Duggan pays for the distraction by getting taken down by The Undertaker. Taker is focused on the urn as if drawing power from it. Duggan gets to his feet in the corner once more, this time grabbing his 2x4, and good guy Jim Duggan drives the 2x4 into the gut of Taker before slamming it against his back. The ref calls for the bell as we find out Undertaker has won this match by disqualification at 6:19. Good lord, there's something about Jim Duggan being a babyface but doing heel things. Maybe he gets it from Hogan, I don't know. Duggan's music hits as Taker and Bearer leave the ringside area. All things considered, I'm giving this match the Undertaker's urn out of the Royal Samovar Trophy urn. This was the shortest match on the card, and if you ask me, it's one of two matches that actually ran the correct amount of time on this show, with the other being the 16-minute bout between Flair and Santana. Backstage, Mean Gene talks to Rowdy Roddy Piper. Oh boy. Piper talks about how proud he is to be here in the Royal Albert Hall. He gives out to Bobby Heenan about calling his kilt a skirt, promising to slap him so long his hair will go back to its natural color. He also calls out Ric Flair, calling him a feather-wearing flocking freak, and saying he's never backed down from anyone. He talks about winning the trophy and then taking a football player and go to the disco, teach him how to ring a few bells. Piper walks off as Mean Gene talks about having high tea with the Queen Mother, and that ends this segment. I'm once again reminded that the original airing of this had ad breaks as my brain starts to drift off present-day WWE programming. But at least this pay-per-view style event had more wrestling than not wrestling, if you catch what I'm saying. Kinda like an AEW pay-per-view. Anyway, we cut to another backstage segment with Mean Gene, this time talking to Typhoon and Jimmy Hart. Jimmy talks about the 5 chances his organization has to win the trophy tonight, but Gene tells him he's got a lot of nerve, talking to Okerlund like that. He points out to Typhoon that there are no friends in a match like this, asking what would happen if he and Earthquake are the last in the ring. Typhoon says that's none of Gene's business, and if it comes down to that, it's up to Typhoon and Earthquake to judge the outcome, and that's it. The Foon refuses to elaborate, as he and Hart storm off, and in come Power and Glory to talk about the tag title match. They face Legion of Doom, and Roma says the champs thought they could run and hide, but Power and Glory are here in London to challenge. Hercules emphasizes this by saying they have no limits, coming halfway around the world to do battle. He promises the champs will be taken down for the count. Gene talks about how long it would take for them to get another opportunity, but they point out they are called the Power and the Glory. Roma asks if their shirts say failure, pointing out they do not. Their shirts read winner. Paul, I don't know how to tell you this, but your shirt doesn't say that either. They end the promo by saying the Legion of Doom are in a lot of trouble. I have a feeling that I will be in trouble when this match comes up. Cut away and return backstage where Gene talks to the champs. He asks Legion of Doom about the challengers' comments earlier, and Animal calls them geeks before running them down. Animal says they didn't beat nobodies for the title, but they beat the best in the World Wrestling Federation. They're gonna be champs for a long, long time, right, Hawk? There's no well, but a clever twist instead, as he talks about the swelling of the fluid sac surrounding the brain, contusions, inner bleeding. These are the things that the Legion of Doom's dreams are made of. He says their challengers will be renamed Sour and Gory because when they're done with the challengers, their mother won't accept the looks that they have been given above the ring right here in London. What did I just listen to? Gene changes the topic to the main event Battle Royal, asking the Legion of Doom what would happen if they're the last 2 in the ring. Hawk sums up the situation with a "oh, what a rush," before Animal talks about growing up on the streets of Chicago, being against the odds, and proving you can do something. They're the tag team champions, and after they beat Power and Glory, they will go after that Battle Royal because there's nothing that the Legion of Doom likes more than a good fight. Monsoon throws to the ring announcement after being asked to stop yelling by Heenan, and we head down to see Power and or Glory make their way to the ring to absolutely no music. You know who does get music though? The tag champs, as Legion of Doom make their way out to a nice pop to get this match underway. A lot of time killing as the challengers run down Hawk and Animal while Bobby and Monsoon talk about how this match could end. One bit I liked in particular was Heenan saying he thinks the Legion of Doom could be pinned, but he's not so sure they would give up. We finally start the match with Hawk and Roma, with Hawk looking for a test of strength. Paul seems less than keen on joining in, running the crowd down before finally going for it. Hawk gets the upper hand early on, taking Roma down to a knee, but Paul lands a headbutt to break free for some punches. Paul seems less than keen on joining in, running the crowd down before finally going for it. Hawk gets the upper hand early on, taking Roma down to a knee, but Paul lands a headbutt to break free for some punches. Hawk fights back off the ropes for a dropkick, taking Roma off his feet. Paul builds up some momentum but takes a neckbreaker for his trouble. Snapmare by Hawk, followed by a fist drop for a 1 count. Roma backs off as Animal makes the tag, as does Hercules. Big man Hoss fight possibly ensues as they each hit the ropes looking for a shoulder tackle. Herc sends Animal to the corner, but the Road Warrior fights back with a clothesline before tagging Hawk back in. Hawk lays into Hercules, sending him to the corner before Herc fights back with an inverted atomic drop. He doesn't have control for long as Hawk turns things around, slamming the head of Hercules into the turnbuckle. Roma reluctantly tags in to go after Hawk, sending him to the corner for a sneak attack while the ref is preoccupied with Animal. Piledriver connects, but Hawk is already back up as he drops Roma with a press slam, sending him into Hercules. Animal keeps Herc away while Hawk hits a scoop slam to go up top, but Roma dodges the clothesline to save himself from danger. Hawk ends up on the outside where Hercules gets a sneak attack in before Roma leaves the ring for some more shots. Tag to Hercules, who brings Hawk back into the ring for a right hand and a boot. He follows up by dropping Hawk onto the top rope before playing to the crowd. He eventually takes Hawk down while commentary talks about hanging out with the Queen. Herc, however, is worn out, and this means both men are down as the crowd wills Hawk into a hot tag from Animal. Roma tags in, taking a flurry of offense from Animal into a dropkick. Animal sends Paul to the ropes for a powerbomb, but only gets a near fall. Hawk and Herc end up going at it on the outside as Roma goes up top and jumps into a power slam by Animal for the pin and the win at 9:08. That's right, we don't even get a Doomsday device in this tag title match, as the ref raises the Legion's hands in victory. This was a decent enough match, but it could have used maybe another minute or two. Certainly a Doomsday device to end the match, I don't know. That said, I'm giving this match what it so desperately needs and deserves, and that is a Doomsday device at a Paul Roma spot in the Four Horsemen. We cut backstage for yet another interview segment as I quickly glance back at Cage Match to remind myself we just have 2 matches left. Right now we hear from Mean Gene and the British Bulldog. Gene welcomes Davey Boy back to the UK as Smith talks about smelling victory in his hometown, both against the Barbarian and in the Battle Royal main event. The bigger you are, the harder you fall, and that is a promise made from the Bulldog. Whether he can win both matches tonight remains to be seen. After the break, we get a special welcome home for Lord Alfred Hayes, who makes the ring announcements for our semi-main event. Out first is the Barbarian, with a crown that would have made Valhalla proud. No music and little heat for Barbarian, and the inverse is true for the British Bulldog. A unanimous pop as Davey Boy Smith makes his way to the ring. Heenan gives out on the Bulldog as the bell rings to get this match underway. A fun bit with the crowd giving a soccer-style chant before the 2 men lock up, and this quickly turns the Barbarian looking for a shoulder tackle to no avail. Fans chant for Bulldog, who gets sent to the corner by the Barbarian, before managing to fight back with a boot and a dropkick to force his opponent out of the ring for a breather. Barbarian jaws off about showing Bulldog what a real man is and what the wrestling's all about as he circles the ring. Heenan is asked what he said, and the Brain responds, "The English meat is really neat." Alright, Bobby. Barbarian is back in the ring, but the Bulldog wrenches his arm, forcing him to the ropes. Barbarian pushes back, but Davey Boy goes for a sunset flip and... Hello, Avar. Sorry, Jay. Davey slips out before catching the arm of the Barbarian once more. Barbarian sends him to the ropes to break free, but takes a boot toe to the face before Bulldog takes him to the mat with an arm drag. Back on the arm goes Davey Boy, driving a knee onto it for good measure to the delight of the crowd. Barbarian tries to fight back but is brought up by Smith before sending the Bulldog to the ropes once more, this time connecting with a boot to send Davey Boy to the floor outside. Barbarian follows him out as commentary talk about the Battle Royal. Smith gets slammed into the ring post before Barbarian lands some more boots and slides back into the ring. The ref checks on Davey Boy before starting a count, but Barbarian goes right back on the attack as the crowd try to will the Bulldog back into this match. Barbarian props Smith up on the ropes for 2 beats of the Bodhrán. You know what I'm talking about. He does the Sheamus thing to send Bulldog to the mat before Bobby says, "He who chants by himself chants alone." This is why there will never be another like the Brain. Anyway, Barbarian catches Davey Boy in a chinlock, much to the delight of a young wrestling bios, I'm sure. Heenan continues to whine about the fans while noting he's got Smith down, but the Bulldog starts to fight back to his feet after 2 drops with the arm. This doesn't last long as Barbarian drops him with another boot. He follows up with a pile driver for the cover, but Davey Boy kicks out at 2. Scoop slam by Barbarian, and he goes to the most dangerous rope for an elbow drop, but Smith rolls out of the way. He's on his feet for some punches on the Barbarian before sending him over the top with a clothesline to the outside. He sends Barbarian into the barricade, but is propped up against the ring post as Barbarian goes for a lariat. Davey Boy slides back into the ring as Barbarian follows, only to be laid out with a clothesline off the ropes for a 2 count. The crowd pops for a delayed vertical suplex, but it's only good for another near fall as Barbarian kicks out. Smith brings him to the corner for a series of punches, but Barbarian reverses the hammer throw only for the Bulldog to catch him with a power slam to get the win to the approval of the crowd. Decent match here for sure, credit where it's due as this was a nice back and forth, and at 10:07 this was just the right length. What? Of time, it was the right length of time. Anyway, I give this match a Barbarian Shinlock out of Davey Boy's undying love and loyalty to the United Kingdom. We head backstage to hear from Jimmy Hart and the Nasty Boys. Hart talks about the boys taking care of the Rockers and that things will get real nasty in the Battle Royal. Jerry Sags cuts in by asking when has there ever been a more tragic event in Europe than the Nasty Boys coming to town, and proceeds to answer that question by finishing this promo. He says sure, there's been plague here and there, and some cat named Adolf raised a little hell around here, but never nothing like the Nasty Boys coming to town. They've proven it to the Rockers, and now they'll prove it in the Battle Royal. Brian Knobbs says what a night on this European Rampage tour. Everyone but everyone is gonna feel the wrath of the Nasty Boys. Rockers already felt it, and now everybody else is gonna feel it as the boys are both in it and working as a team, and it's time to get nasty as they go out to destroy everybody. The trio walk off as Gene says that match is up next, and sure enough, it is indeed up next. We cut to ringside where Lord Alfred has joined commentary. There's been enough talk. It's time for our main event. Oh. The ring announcer goes over the rules of the Battle Royal and reminds us of the Royal Samovar Trophy up for grabs. Now there's been enough talk. Now it's time for our main event. First entrant. Oh no. We're getting entrances for everybody. First entrant comes out and it's Kerry Von Erich as Hayes reveals the trophy is T-Urn. Out next are the Natural Disasters, followed by Tito Santana as I remind myself that this is not the Royal Rumble, so the order of entrance doesn't matter a bit. Out next is the Mountie, followed by the Rockers, and again we're just a couple months away from the breakup. Next out is the Barbarian as Heenan talks about Hogan being too busy making movies to be here tonight, but Ric Flair is in this, and this is a point Hayes agrees with. This is followed by the Big Boss Man and Power and Glory, the latter reminding me that not everyone in this match has theme music. Out next is Hacksaw Jim Duggan as Heenan talks about him using the trophy for peanut butter, before the Nasty Boys make their way out with the pair billed from Allentown, Pennsylvania. All of a sudden, I get the Nastyville promos now. Anyway, out next is Ric Flair as a lot of attention is given to the future WWF Champion. Legion of Doom make their way to the ring next, followed by England's favorite son as the British Bulldog heads out to a great pop from the crowd. Out next is The Undertaker, staring down his opponents in the ring as he approaches. Rounding out the participants is Rowdy Roddy Piper, who also gets a big ol' pop from the crowd. Piper heads to the ring as we finally get this Battle Royal underway. Piper goes after Flair as the rest of the field goes at it. I will try my best to touch on what happens here as Roddy chases Flair out of the ring, but they're not eliminated. Roddy gets tripped up as he brings Flair back into the ring, and it's a whole lot of fighting in the ring with little to really take note of. Bossman narrowly evades being eliminated by Earthquake, but Hawk takes Hercules out of the match before rushing over to grab a chair from ringside. As the announcement is made, Texas Tornado is thrown over as well. Piper manages to get Brian Knobbs out after a struggle as Typhoon sends Marty Jannetty out. Sags goes after Piper in the corner as Barbarian tries to take out Santana before Hawk pulls him away, and Tito sends Barbarian over the top rope. Taker's going after Piper in the corner as Mountie rolls out of the ring to save himself. Earthquake takes Tito out as Piper goes back after Flair, who also rolls out for a breather. He's back in when Quake grabs the hot rod. Sags sends Hawk out of the ring but finds himself out of the match as well. Bulldog's got the Mountie on the ropes as Taker goes after Animal. Mountie sends Shawn over the top rope, but the future HBK skins the cat, only to get caught with a right hand by the Mountie, sending him to the floor. Mountie then aids Roma in going after Bossman, while Quake misses a splash in the corner on Duggan. Mountie evades Bossman by leaving through the middle ropes. Duggan and Quake go at it some more as Animal hits a press slam on Flair. Duggan gets distracted and sent out of the ring by Quake, and that's half the field gone. Duggan comes back into the ring with 2x4 and good guy Duggan tries to take out Earthquake with the board. He celebrates as Animal finishes the job, by booting Quake to the floor. Flair and Piper continue their fight on the outside as Mountie and Roma go after Animal. Roddy and Rick are back in the ring now, and a back body drop by Piper sends Flair over and to the floor outside. Heenan is speechless now as Bossman goes after Mountie, only for Roman to blindside him. We finally hear from the Brain, who insists Flair jumped over the top rope because he doesn't need to win the trophy with all the money he has. Piper and Taker go at it now as Roddy hangs him up on the rope, bouncing the dead man on his little tombstones. Romo goes after Bulldog, but gets eliminated as Animal goes after Undertaker and gets sent flying out. 6 men are left now as Taker goes back after Piper, who manages to catch Taker over the rope for an elimination over a decade before Maven would follow in his footsteps. Taker doesn't like this one bit, pulling Roddy over the rope for the elimination before going after him. Mountie talks strategy with Typhoon in the corner as Taker is finally calmed down by Paul Bearer. Jimmy's chatting with Mountie as well as the 2 men in his group against the Bossman and the Bulldog. Mountie goads Bossman into chasing him as Typhoon goes after Davey Boy. This ends up with Mountie getting a taste of hard times. Bossman drops on him before sliding out for a shot on Jimmy Hart, but as he comes back in, he gets low bridged by Mountie, forcing him to the outside for the elimination. Your final 3 are Mountie, Typhoon, and the British Bulldog. Jimmy's buddies continue the attack on Smith until he dodges a splash from Typhoon that sends the natural disaster crashing into the Mountie. Bulldog works on trying to eliminate Typhoon before getting blindsided by the Mountie for the save. Typhoon goes after Smith again before Mountie calls to get this finished. They send him to the ropes for a double clothesline, and he looks out as Mountie brings him back to his feet. He sets him up for a clothesline by Typhoon, but the Bulldog ducks it, and Typhoon ends up sending Mountie to the outside instead. We're down to 2 as Bulldog tries a shoulder tackle to no avail. He tries again and again before shifting gears for a drop kick. An Irish whip is reversed as Typhoon lands a corner attack and a lariat to send Davey Boy to the mat. Davey uses the ropes to get back on his feet as Typhoon charges at him, but Smith hoists him up and over, sending Typhoon to the floor for the win at 14:39 to a big pop from the crowd in London. The celebration is short-lived as Jimmy Hart and Earthquake come in for a sneak attack, but Davey rolls out of the ring to evade the big splash. The natural disasters go after him as Andre the Giant makes his way down using a crutch, explained by Hayes as he's just recovered from a knee operation, as the Giant makes a beeline for the disasters. Andre runs them off as the pair follow Jimmy Hart up the ramp, and we get the announcement that Davey Boy Smith is your winner. Great reaction for the British Bulldog, who holds the Royal Samovar trophy up high as he celebrates, before a piece of the T-urn falls off. Whoops. That aside, the crowd is loving it as Monsoon thanks everyone for watching, and we get a cheerio from Heenan and Hayes to close the show. This was a pretty decent battle royal for what it was, actually. At worst, this felt a little on the short side, but that's probably to be expected for a match where everyone's in the ring to start. That's something I've gotten less used to thanks to the Royal Rumble match. As for the rating, well, isn't it obvious? I give this match a Royal Samovar trophy out of the electric kettle I used to heat up water for ramen. Don't let that fool you, this was in fact a pretty good match, and I think the Hometown Hero was absolutely the right call, especially when you see that crowd reaction. Good stuff here. And with that, it's time to go home. As I sit here processing the entirety of this show, I think, wow, what a weird state the Federation was at the time. Hulkamania continues to run wild, but thanks to his other commitments, he is nowhere near this show. What you get instead is a surprisingly solid show, with maybe the worst bits being the Nasty Boys rockers going on longer than it needed to, and the Undertaker-Duggan match having a baffling finish. Though, the more I think about it, the more I feel like Duggan might have beaten the patriotism into Taker with that 2x4. Lest we forget the man went on to sport a Stars and Stripes jacket in '93 and became the American Badass in the year 2000. I don't know if I'd recommend watching the entire show unless you're looking for the nostalgia attached to this. A golden era show without the hot dog and a grandstanding of one of its main players at the time at a unique venue. Like I said at the start, if you really want to watch this and you're not in the States, I wish you the best of luck, but maybe that ain't so bad. That said, thanks again to Nick for asking me to cover this show. At the very least, it was interesting to get a sense of where the Federation was at the time. I'll be keeping the suggestion box open for future tape study ideas. Feel free to send yours through the socials. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have to return a tape.